Well, welcome. I wanted to wear this in honor of being in Ottawa. My condolences to Senator fans.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Toronto. So, come on. You're doing better than we are. And don't even get me started about Toronto and hockey right now. It's pretty much depressing. I'm pretty sure the team in Cincinnati, which is an ECHL team called the Cyclones, could beat the Leafs. And I know some of you are probably Leafs fans too, so go Montreal! Okay, seriously, the Oilers got eliminated last night, so come on, Montreal, you gotta do it for us. So one thing that I do want to mention is that I actually...
And I am Canadian!
Thank you. I may live in Cincinnati, but I'm still Canadian at heart. I play ice hockey a couple of times a week. I do ride my motorcycle everywhere, including coming here. It was a 2-day trip up. It rained the entire day on Wednesday. A lot of fun. So a little bit, and thank you for the great intro. And I can't see any of you, so if you all leave, I won't even know. But the whole 50,000 number is based on the number of YouTube views and all the people that I've talked through the years, especially in what I'll call the glory days of Drupal training. Drupal training started for me in 2011 after I attended DrupalCon Chicago. I was hired by Steve Burge from OS Training, and I started doing Joomla, WordPress, and Drupal training at that point. And so Drupal, for me, yes, I started in 5, but I completely skipped 6, like a whole bunch of people did. When 7 launched, though, I got pretty excited again. And so I ended up traveling a lot. At one point, I was doing about 85,000 miles a year doing Drupal training, primarily Drupal training, and had a lot of fun. I've got a YouTube course on Drupal 8, so by the way, I won this at DrupalCon LA, and I'm pretty sure it was an Ottawa company that was giving them out. And I don't know, probably not here, but... yes, thank you, yes. So I went up to them, and I said, hey, that's a great jersey. I play ice hockey. You should probably give that to somebody who actually plays hockey and will wear it. And they said, oh no, it's a random draw, sorry man. Oh, okay, fine. Next morning, text message. Rod, you won the jersey. So I wore it all day in LA that day, and I haven't actually played hockey in it because I don't want to wreck it. I do play ice hockey a couple times a week still, and in Cincinnati, we've actually got a pretty active hockey community. It's a lot of fun. So back to that YouTube course. There's about 4.5 million views on that Drupal 8 course. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So, I'm old. And they say with age comes wisdom. I'm not so sure about that, but I do know this. With age comes experience, and experience and change. This was my first computer. You may not recognize it, but it was called a Zenith Z, not Z, Z89. This was 1975, 76. My dad was in charge of putting these computers in every bulk station, oil bulk station for Texaco Canada. Texaco was later bought out by Esso. Yes, it was an 8-inch floppy drive. This is not an exact replica. I tried to get AI to build me one and it just didn't work. But it did have 64 kilobytes of RAM. Yeah. And I learned to program on that thing. I sat down and for days I spent time just typing in stuff into it to get, hello world. And it was pretty darn exciting. This was state of the art in 1975, 76, and I had it. It was pretty cool. I graduated from that in 1984 and I bought a Macintosh, like a lot of people my age. We bought the Mac, 2 floppy drives, the little hard ones, which was cool, that was an upgrade, and a dot matrix printer. Yeah. I worked for IBM at the time. That went over like a lead balloon. So, we've all evolved through our computers, and our technology. And a couple of years ago, I was down at DrupalCamp, Florida. I went over to the Cape Canaveral and did the tour. And when we got to the Gemini area, the woman who was doing the bit of a guided tour said, "Take out your phones." So we all did. And she said, "You've got more power in the palm of your hand than all the computers that send from men to the moon." That's change. That's radical change. And so it's just amazing to see all the kinds of change that we are going through and have gone through over the last number of years. So when I built that YouTube course, I think it's 67 videos, 4.5 million views, people are still watching it. I have a Drupal 9 course on LinkedIn, people are still taking that. I honestly don't know why, but they are. And literally about 50,000 people through live training, Acquia Academy training, LinkedIn training, and all of that have learned Drupal from me, and it's been a real privilege. And by the way, it's a real privilege for me to be here today. I can't tell you how excited I was when I got asked to come to Ottawa and speak to you. But something has changed in the last 2 years. Where I used to travel 85,000 miles a year, I don't travel at all anymore. COVID fixed that for all of us. Where videos used to get hundreds of thousands of views, my best Drupal AI video has just over 1,000. Where my entire training company, where I would do 2 weeks every single month teaching Acquia's Drupal immersion training, which is the prep course for the certification, I would do that twice a month. I haven't done one since July. Pardon, I did one. I've done one since July. At DrupalCon Chicago, just a few weeks ago, I sat down with Mike Anello, who owns Drupal Easy, and Addison Berry, who owns DrupalEyes.me. We had breakfast together. And between the three of us, we've trained a few people over the years. Mike just closed or shuttered his Drupal Career Online course because nobody was taking it. Addison has fired all of her staff and will probably close down DrupalEyes.me by the end of the year. And you've already heard about how my training is doing. The state of the union or the Drupal landscape has changed significantly in the last number of years. I'm not going to get into all the reasons for that. I'm not going to talk about why Drupal is not what it was back in the Drupal 7 or even the early Drupal 8 days. That's well documented, and there was quite the controversial session on that at DrupalCon. If you follow LinkedIn, you saw all the back and forth arguing about that one, and it was quite exciting. I do know for a fact, however, based on the training industry within Drupal, that massive changes have occurred. Now, obviously, one of the biggest changes is AI. On LinkedIn 2 weeks ago, a guy who's never touched Drupal posted, "I decided to learn Drupal. So I sat down with Claude AI, and I built my first Drupal website." To which Dries replied, if you don't know who Dries is, he's the founder of Drupal. To which Dries replied, "Good on ya. That's awesome. Way to go. Good use of AI." In an age of AI, why do we need training? But it's deeper than that. And sets the premise for the talk that I want to give you today. And what I'm calling the Builder Breakthrough. So here's my premise. Drupal is ready for a moment that it's been moving towards for years. It's not necessarily a new feature, although there are new features coming into play here. And it's not even necessarily a new release, although again, there are new releases coming in, like Drupal CMS. But it's a shift with who can build Drupal and how. Drupal site building, for those of you who've been in Drupal for a long time, and I'm going to assume that's most of you here today, we have completely forgotten what it's like to be a beginner. I have too. You know that, I don't have the cartoon, and I'm sorry about that, but remember the cartoon that showed the building site building for WordPress, ModX, and Joomla, and the curve was pretty flat. And then there was a Drupal curve up to a cliff, and people were hanging themselves, bulldozers were shoving bodies off the cliff. I used to say that's not true anymore, but no, you know what? For a beginner, for someone who's never seen Drupal before, that is still a pretty accurate description of what site building is or has been up to this point. So here's the premise of my talk today, or here's the basic outline. We're ready for a builder breakthrough, where people who've never seen Drupal before can start to build and bypass the confusion with confidence because of a few things that the Drupal community is doing to prepare for this, what I think is a pretty monumental shift. We're ready for a moment when non-developers gain the ability to build Drupal by redirecting their expertise and directing Drupal, not configuring Drupal. So, what do I mean by that? Well, three things that it isn't. Let's start with that. Number one, it isn't removing developers. In fact, I think the site builder breakthrough makes developers even more important. There is this misconception, I think, in Drupal land. I just recently was the guest host of the Talking Drupal podcast. There's this misconception that we need to attract new developers to Drupal. That's true. Never going to happen. Never going to happen until people actually start building sites with Drupal. Let me talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But this doesn't diminish the need or the experience or the expertise of developers. In fact, it enhances it. We need developers more than ever, but I don't think we're going to attract them without this site builder breakthrough that we're talking about today. We're not dumbing down Drupal. Drupal is an incredibly complex system that is obviously the best of all of them. But it's complex, and we don't get further here by dumbing it down. And finally, we're not replacing the expertise that people have built up. Site builders like you and me, who really know Drupal and can put together amazing sites without writing a line of code, can do amazing things. We're not talking about that site builder today. We're talking about the people who come to Drupal and go, this is too complex, I'm going to go use Happens every day. Happens every day. Let me tell you why. This is the Drupal site building workflow that I teach when I teach the 2-day site building class as part of Ottawa's curriculum. And when I do 1 or 2 day sessions, I quickly, I condense it, but this is the outline of the course. Obviously, we've got planning, content types, media, permissions, organization, display, enhancements, and launch. When I talk about this, the site building workflow is a cycle. You build a content type, you add fields, taxonomy, you add media, you design your image styles, you add roles and workflows for permissions, you organize it with paths and menus, and then you get to the display with blocks, views, and layouts, and you throw some AI in there, some scheduling of content, some SEO, and then you do it all over again on every content type you build. Do you have any idea how many thousands of clicks that takes? Think about it for just a minute. Every content type, how many clicks it takes? How many menus do you have to go to make this happen? I'm working with a university outside of Chicago right now, and they're doing great. They hired a pretty well-known Drupal firm to build their site over a year, and then something happened. I don't know what. But by the time the dust settled, there were 42 shortfalls in the progress of the project, and I had done their training for a week, all of this training I've been describing, and then they called me and said, can you help us? I said, of course. Sure. So 42 shortfalls from what they were promised and had contracted for. And again, I don't know what happened, but stuff happens. Like, we're not going to worry about that. This is a team not of web designers. It's the marketing department for a university that's been charged with building out the rest of this site. Guess what? They're also the content editors for the most part. Yes, they have content contributors, but they're the editors. They're the people responsible for getting it in. This is happening more and more on smaller sites that don't cost $250,000 and get sent to an agency. The people who are building the small to medium sites now are not experienced site builders for the most part. They're the people who come to my training going, I've never seen Drupal before. And they go through 2 days of site building and they're lost. To say nothing of the 2 days of module development that we give them. Because they're marketers. Half of them have never used the terminal before. And they freak out when you have to open a terminal window. Thank you. They freak out when you have to open a terminal window to update Drupal or install a module. This is the reality of the small to medium site builder. And this is what Drupal CMS is supposed to be fixing. So, can you imagine never having seen Drupal before and being confronted with this as the site building workflow? So we're not replacing expertise, but it is, in my opinion, the moment where capability expands without losing power. That's what I want to share with you today. So in my mind, there are 3 layers to this site builder breakthrough: access, confidence, and scale. Access. All right. Before, you needed to know how to use Drupal to build a Drupal site. And again, I'm not saying we're going to fix this tomorrow, but this is where we need to go. Your entry required technical fluency. The bar is really high. You can describe now, with the breakthrough, you just describe what you want, and it happens. Structure guides the rest, and building becomes a conversation, and the bar is incredibly low. If you've watched any of the keynotes from Dries or any of the current videos that are out there, you've probably seen demos of this. And so again, that site building workflow I've shown you can be delegated, a lot of it now, and very soon delegated to AI. Drupal AI is incredible, and it's growing every day. The latest version now has guardrails built in that will prevent bad things from happening. You even have private AI LLMs through something like Amazy.io. So if you're worried about sending all your stuff out to ChatGPT or Anthropic or Gemini, you don't have to worry anymore because it can be all private for $30 a month. Let that sink in for just a minute. Some of you are paying $200 a month for Claude. You can get Drupal AI in your site private for $30 a month right now. That's pretty incredible. Confidence. Confidence. I just can't tell you how many times I have had to walk through brand new people to Drupal about this. You can't break it, guys. You don't worry, everything can be fixed. And yet, site builders who are the target market for Drupal CMS are really worried about breaking stuff. And the trial and error is frustrating. And the outcome is always uncertain. However, after the site builder breakthrough that I'm sharing with you, I think there's a much better process. Guided site building. Predictable outcomes. And momentum instead of hesitation. When I can just describe something, that's pretty cool. The third is scale. Right now, when I want a layout on a Drupal 10 or 11 site, I have to wait for a themer to build, as we say, I'll give you the Indiana way of saying this, build me a page, build me a layout. We have to wait for that to happen, for all of the template overrides to be put in place. Developers, front-end developers, are the bottleneck when it comes to site building. Now, over the last number of years, there have been some tremendous attempts at fixing this. Acquia has Site Studio. PromoSource has Provis is what it's called. There's Mercury. DXPR has their page builder as well. And of course, there's the core layout builder with contributed modules, which, interestingly enough, are my #1 videos in the last 2 years. And I presented that whole scenario at DrupalCamps over the last couple of years, and it's been really interesting. Whatever the layout tool is here, scale becomes possible because site builders are having a conversation with their Drupal website, and they don't need to know everything about it. I'm going to demonstrate a couple of these as we go. So the potential here, the breakthrough here, has been coming for years, and as Dries has said now at the last 3 keynotes, Drupal is the best positioned content management system for AI. I don't think any of us would disagree. It's absolutely true. There's no better content management system for AI than Drupal. I have no clue how WordPress is going to get AI working properly. I don't. I can't even imagine how they're going to do it. Joomla, well. But Drupal, and I'm not putting those other CMSs down, well, I taught all 3 for a long time. I was the vice president of the Joomla project for 3 years. So I'm pretty close to those guys, but no one's better at this than Drupal. And so we've been moving towards this idea of accessibility, advanced site building, structure, and reuse for years, but AI is what brings it home. And I think I'm going to be able to demonstrate that. AI accelerates Drupal, what Drupal already does well, in 4 ways. They are, as you probably already know, content modeling. I'd like an event content type, please. I'm going to show you an example of that in just a minute. Views can now be created with AI just by describing what you want. Page assembly. We're going to look at a video on that. And I wanted to do live demos, but you know how that goes in a keynote. No way am I trying a live demo, especially without my live. So I've got videos. Better starting points. You've probably seen videos where Drupal AI builds a content type, where Drupal AI builds a taxonomy, where Drupal AI literally can search your site. Needless to talk about what Drupal AI does in the editor itself with prompting, modifying your content to make it semantically correct when someone sends you a Word file that isn't, changing the tone to make your brand voice override anything either AI or somebody else has given you, checking your spelling, translations on the fly, media management, and now with ChatGPT finally having a decent image creator, you've got image creation right in your Drupal site, as well as, hey, let me take a look at your image and assign all the alt text for you. One of the worst parts of ADA compliance is terrible alt text, if there's any at all. Drupal AI fixes all of that. None the least of which is embedded right within the module from scratch is simply remarkable. Hey, can you suggest a taxonomy term for me? Can you suggest a title? Hey, could you take a summary of this body field, rewrite it as an SEO LinkedIn profile post, and put it in a field for me that I can send to LinkedIn? Those automations are all possible and have been possible now for quite a while. So all of these things are accelerated by AI. And so I want to kind of share with you a new way to build here. What we used to have to configure, we can now do with Drupal AI. How about, let's create a content type called events. Let's have fields like title, date, location, image, description, build a filtered list for upcoming events. That can be done in literally 30 seconds just by giving that to the Drupal prompt in your chat bar. But we've been able to do that for almost 2 years now. What about this?
Create a vocabulary called motorcycles and populate it with the top 10 brands of motorcycles as terms. Now, as you probably can see, the voice didn't translate quite exactly, but I think Drupal's going to be able to figure it out. It's contacting the agents, and this does take a moment or two, but it's still quicker than typing them in manually. The vocabulary called motorcycles has been created, structure, taxonomy, and there's my motorcycle, vocabulary, and there are my terms. Awesome! Here's another one. Click on Assistant, and let's do this one as if we didn't know all the correct Drupal terms to use. I need a categorization system where I can list all 50 US states. Can you build that for me? Let's see how intelligent it is. And there we go. Categorization system for all 50 states has been set up, called US states, with each state as a taxonomy term. Let's go check that out. So once again, close that, go back to taxonomy. Here's my US states, and there's my 50 terms in alphabetical order.
So we're not even talking about I need to know the actual terminology in Drupal anymore. I just got to say it. I got to just describe it. And this is only going to get better. What about landing pages? Let me just backtrack for a second. Are there any module developers, core developers in the room? Core contributors? Okay, module contributors. All right, let me offend you for just a second. You guys screw us over every time you release a new version of Drupal. You do. Let me explain. When I teach this to new people in Drupal, and I get to the layout portion, and I have to tell them that the only thing you can do is rearrange the fields and hide the labels, they go, "Are you kidding me?" Remember, brand new people to Drupal, and this is who we're going after with Drupal CMS. And I go, "Oh, but wait, there's lots of good stuff that you can try. You can try Site Studio. Of course, you have to be hosted on Acquia and be filthy rich." No offense, Mom. Or, what about Provis? Well, it's a distribution that can't be upgraded. Well, what about Layout Builder? Well, there's 30 modules you need to add to Layout Builder to get it to work right, plus about 2,000 lines of CSS to get it to work. But you can do it. It's awesome. It's drag and drop. It's cool. You can have custom block types, etc., etc. Well, we all know where that's going. Drupal 7 launched, and again, we got screwed over as site builders because we couldn't design anything. We had to wait for themers. So some enterprising module developers, contributors, came up with panels, display suite, panoply, and other things like that. Awesome. Drupal 8 launched. We're screwed again. Until Layout Builder came along. Paragraphs was developed. And Layout Builder got all of those extra modules to the point where Layout Builder is actually usable. I haven't written a line of code or had a template override in years in Drupal 10 and 11 because I use Layout Builder and contributed modules. But we're getting screwed again. Drupal CMS comes out, single directory components. You have to have a theme that supports single directory components. And etc., etc., etc. Now, before you think I'm a heretic, don't get me wrong. I love developers because you all do stuff that I just don't want to do. And the stuff that's going into Drupal right now is the site builder breakthrough. Layout Canvas, Project Browser, Drupal AI, Canvas AI. This is what is going to bring people back to Drupal. All those small sites that you want to build, all of those small to medium site builders you want to empower, this is where we are. So let's take a look at what Drupal can do right now.
AI can generate a beautiful website in minutes, but prototypes are not production systems. The real challenge is turning that speed into something a team can actually run. On screen, you're looking at the Lovable UI. We're using it to create Vision 25, an imaginary event site about the future of Drupal. With a single prompt, Lovable gives us a premium microsite that feels cinematic, editorial, and ambitious, but also bright, clean, and readable on a giant projected screen. In seconds, we have the visual mood, the homepage, the agenda, the track views, and the labs. That speed is impressive. But look closely. In this prototype, a lot of the content is still embedded directly in the generated site. That's fine for first pass, but it is not yet a mature editorial system. And to be fair, Lovable can do much more than static pages. It can generate app behavior, connect to databases, and create backend structure too. But once you start solving for structured content, workflows, permissions, governance, accessibility, multilingual support, and reusable editorial components, you are effectively building your own CMS. Drupal starts with those foundations already figured out. So now we move into Drupal CMS, starting from a blank site. We use the Canvas CLI and the Drupal Canvas skills, and OpenAI Codex rebuilds the experience the Drupal way, with Canvas, reusable components, and structured content underneath. The goal is visual parity with a real editorial foundation and all the power of Drupal. Now we have the same design intent inside Drupal, but backed by a real system for teams. This is where the Drupal difference shows up. Remember the prototype we started with? In Lovable, much of that content lived inside the generated site. Here, it becomes structured, reusable, and editable. Editors can open the page in Canvas, see the component tree, work with reusable components, and create new pages from the same foundation. And the content is real content. Sessions, labs, and timeline items are structured data, not hard-coded layout. So when we update the timeline and add DrupalCon Chicago to 2026, that is a normal editorial change inside Drupal. No reprompting, no code surgery. Under the surface, this is a governed system, components, relationships, and content models that teams can actually scale. And once the site has been shaped into a reusable foundation, Site Export can package the site's components, configuration, and sample content into a reusable starting point for the next event. AI gets us to visual ambition faster. Drupal makes that ambition durable, editable, reusable, and real.
Obviously stolen from DrupalCon Chicago and narrated by Martin. Well done. Yeah, this is where we are and this is where we're going. And it's only going to get better. Somebody said at one of the conferences I was at, I forget which one it was, this is as bad as Drupal AI will ever be. It's only getting better on every release. So, what does this mean for site builders? Number one, it means developers who are building these components, single directory components, themes like DripYard, Mike Herschel at DripYard. All of the development work that's going into this needs to make it easier for site builders to direct Drupal, not necessarily build in Drupal. So again, we're not replacing developers, we are simply making them more important. Where system designers shape the work that site builders do, component architects build the reusable pieces that make the speed possible, and AI workflow creators can design the prompts and help site builders direct Drupal the way they should. When builders build, developers lead. So what happens? Well, more sites get built. Faster delivery, better client experiences, more people choosing Drupal. If my clients, when I'm building a site, if my client happens to be ABC company or XYZ university, they're my client. By extension, their site visitors are also my client. As developers, core and contrib developers, your client is not Drupal. Your client is not the site visitor. Your client isn't even the people I'm building the site for. I'm your client. The site builder is your client. I said that on the Talking Drupal podcast to Nick, who was a core contributor, and his eyebrows went up, as you can imagine. But who is your customer? Developer? It's the site builder who's going to build the sites so that Drupal grows. And that's a distinct change. Again, how do we attract developers was an entire episode on Talking Drupal a few weeks ago, and I still think it was the wrong topic. How do we attract site builders to Drupal who will build the sites to make Drupal grow with more sites, faster delivery, and more? So when Drupal wants to grow through this Drupal CMS endeavor that we are undertaking, with Drupal AI, Project Browser, Canvas, and Canvas AI, when people can use what's there and build more sites, I think that's when Drupal grows. It's about access, confidence, and building sites quickly. This is the site builder breakthrough I think we need. So when people want to build with Drupal, more sites launch. When more sites launch, Drupal rebuilds its momentum, developers get attracted to Drupal again, more amazing features are made for site builders, more sites get built, more momentum is generated, and Drupal wins. I love what we're doing with Drupal CMS. I think it needs a lot more work. Canvas is amazing. I think it still needs a lot more work. Drupal Canvas, or Canvas AI and Drupal AI are growing exponentially, as we all know. And if you've not gotten into Drupal AI yet, oh, please, 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 you need to. The easiest way to do that is to head over to a site called DrupalForge.org. Sorry. There we go. DrupalForge.org, where you can spin up Drupal sites. You can even spin up the Keynote from DrupalCon Chicago. You just have to provide your own token or API tokens for it. But you can spin up the entire thing. You can also, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, click View All Templates, there are also templates for every single part of Drupal AI that are hosted here by, of course I can never find them, QED42, Drupal Canvas AI Space, Drupal AI RAG, CK Editor Demo, AI for Compliance, AI Content Moderation Translate. You see the list here. These are pre-built Drupal sites that will demo all of these features for you, and they give you, I think, $1 in tokens, so you can at least play with them. You can keep these sites for 30 days if you give them your email address, and you can use them for up to 12 hours a day. You can actually build entire websites and export them over to DDEV or your own server if you want. I can't encourage you enough this morning. Number one, our job is to build. Our job is to make clients' sites that are amazing, and Drupal does that. But we have to remember that the new site builders coming into Drupal don't have the experience that you and I have. I've been building sites for over a decade, obviously. The beginner mindset is something that developers need to remember, site builders need to remember, trainers need to remember. These people coming into Drupal who have no background in Drupal don't want to learn 450 clicks to build a content type. It's probably more than that. They want to be able to say, hey, I need an event content type. Here are the things I want to store, and I need a listing of all the events. Go. And about 2 minutes later, it's done. Then you take that over to Canvas and go, here's my event page. Can you make this into a really nice reusable template for all of my events? Canvas AI says I can do that. And boom, you've got a layout. Oh, I've got a one-off event. Here's my new training event that I want to put out there. It's huge. It's going to be big. I need a fantastic page for it. Can you make it with a hero section? You describe what you want, and 2 minutes later, Drupal has looked at all of your media, chosen the correct piece of media, chosen the correct call to action button, and maybe even set up a web form for registration. Site builders in the next few years don't want to build sites by clicking 1,000 times. They're going to want to build sites by directing people, not configuring them. And I think that is the breakthrough that we've been working towards and that Drupal needs desperately to capture in the next year or two if we're going to make the reality, or make Drupal CMS the reality that it can be in attracting small to medium websites back to Drupal. The enterprise, you're going to use whatever tools you've always used. That's the beauty of all of this. Drupal CMS is just Drupal 11. It's just a starting point, and that's exciting. But I think this site builder breakthrough is one of the most important things that we need to do with Drupal going forward. That's it. I hope that's been helpful, and thanks. Nobody actually, well, 3 people left. That's okay, I'll do it. That's all right. I mean, we've got maybe 30 seconds if you want to ask a question, but I'm here all day.